The time is near. I can't just keep singing Les Mis every time we need to talk about this. Hello. Welcome to part 2 of my reading Les Misérables reading vlog. If you did not see part 1, I have decided to make it my 2025, I almost said my life's mission, but no, my 2025 mission to finish the unabridged version of Les Misérables. I'm just gonna keep saying it more obnoxiously every time, by Victor Hugo. Full context is in the first vlog, but long story short, I fucking love this musical and the soundtrack, and I've already read book 1 out of 5, and I loved it. 5 stars based on book 1 alone. There's 5 volumes in this, and my plan is to read all of them. I'm trying to get it to focus, and that's not happening. My plan is to read all 5 volumes and then read like a book or 2 in between the volumes so that I can have a mental break. Volume 1 was so good, I don't think I needed a break per se. So we'll actually just see how that goes. But either way, you'll be getting 4 more videos from me just talking about Les Mis. And it's still not focusing on this page, but what you're missing out on is this is volume 2, Cosette. We finished Fantine's book, rest in peace queen, miss you already. We left off at the place where Jean Valjean escapes from Javert's captivity and is going to find Cosette to raise her as his own. I don't know what's gonna happen. I mean, obviously I know what's gonna happen, but I'm very excited because I love Jean Valjean. I do have, obviously, my physical version of this, but even more importantly, don't look at the romance ebook I was reading. I have it on Kindle, which I find very, very helpful, so I can highlight as I go, because Wikipedia is connected with Kindle, so it'll automatically pull up who the fuck was Charles the 19th or whatever Charles they were on back in France. Also, I'm now realizing I need to go get some sticky tabs, because I don't know if you can tell from me reading the first volume, a lot of sticky tabs in this bitch. But book first, Waterloo. Last year in 1861, on a beautiful May morning, a traveler, the person who was telling this story, was coming from Nivelles and directing his course toward La Houppe. See, that's interesting because I've always wondered who the narrator is, because it always narrates it as we.
Are you happy to be in Paris?
Oui.
And I've always kind of wondered, is this Marius and Cosette writing this as adults? Is it like become a full The Outsiders moment where at the end it becomes, and here's his story? So I like the little nods it gives to the narrator. Maybe it's just Victor Hugo is the narrator and I'm overthinking it. Okay, let me go get my sticky tabs and let's begin. Also, if you couldn't tell, I'm still a bit sick. So this is like my sick day read while I'm horizontal in bed and on the couch.
6.5 hours later.
Okay, I'm putting on my clothes, so ignore that. But I just wanted to hop on to my first update, even though I'm like 2 pages into this book. I think I'm gonna have to stop and do my first independent research session. So the chapter that I started out on in Cosette's book starts out with the undefined narrator going to where the Battle of Waterloo took place, which I did have to highlight the significance of and read into the backstory of it, but it was the last of the Napoleonic Wars. And I know that at some point the book is going to info dump what the fuck Napoleon versus the monarchy was, but I just want to know more for me. I don't understand the difference between a King Louis versus a Napoleon. Like, I literally had to Google when I was reading the first part of this book, was Napoleon good or bad? I didn't know which character's side I needed to be on, and to this day I'm like, was Napoleon good or bad? So I'm gonna find either like a short documentary or some kind of informative YouTube video just telling me what the tea and the gossip was on Napoleon, especially around the final battles and around the time when things were changing in the 1800s and the late 1700s with the French Revolution. Like, I just don't get any of that context, and he has not provided it up front, which is shocking. As I fold my clothes, I'm gonna research that. And then I will continue this chapter with a little bit more knowledge under my belt, which probably will not matter. I'm having such a fun time reading up about French history as I'm reading this book, which, like this book is French history. I feel like I need to do it full justice and give it the full research that it's due. So here's a 30-minute video on the Napoleonic Wars. I'm gonna listen to some oversimplified history.
This video was made possible by NordVPN.
Hey y'all, I'm gonna put my hair up, but I needed you to see the Maggie and the Ferocious Beast that this hairstyle was serving.
Corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture.
they're the same picture.
Alright, well I think it's been like 24 hours since I last updated, but I just finished book 1 of volume 2. That was basically an entire section about the Battle of Waterloo, so I think I left off saying that I was gonna do my own research about the Napoleonic Wars, which was very needed. I think if you're gonna go into this book, you don't need to you don't need to start with any research for the first volume, but oh my god, I was so happy that I'd watched a 40-minute video about the background of Napoleon and what ended up happening. A lot of it ends up being irrelevant and a lot more of it ends up being overstated, but the entire first volume of book 2, no, oh my god, I'm getting all the terminology confused, whatever. All of the chapters that I just read were all about the singular Battle of Waterloo, which I don't know if you can tell from me talking about this book, a book largely based off of historical events. I don't know a lot about French history the way I thought I did. Like, I kept saying this book takes place during the French Revolution, which is not true. This whole section is talking about the transition of power in the early 1800s, so there's some relevance there. I will say, this is the first time that I have been like, okay, Victor, we get it. And the only thing that's keeping me from thinking this book is totally boring, if this was any other book or like a nonfiction book about the Fifth Coalition, I would have been asleep. But the fact that he's like, I don't want to say humanizing war, I guess that is kind of the point of this book, is that he is making you see things from a different perspective, but that sounds so cliche. I don't know how to describe this. It's showing you like, here's what happened. This horse went over here. This person was over there. I did read this entire section on my phone so I could highlight things as I was reading, and my Kindle was being too slow and not highlighting them fast enough so I could look them up. So highly recommend. This is the first book I've read where I've been like, maybe it would make sense to have an iPad as my reading device because I was using the Kindle app so much. But anyway, Napoleon and the way that his soldiers regarded him and the nuance especially of like, was he good guy? Was he bad guy? Like, objectively kind of a bad guy. Hearing what he was like from the perspective of his soldiers and getting the images of what that battle looked like. We didn't really get any further hints into who the narrator is like I thought we would. And for a long time, I was like, where the hell is this going? Who cares about the Battle of Waterloo after so long of him yapping about it? But then, at the very end of the chapter, it like weaves back in a character that you know. You end up re-meeting Thénardier, and I'm already seeing the parallels that this is gonna draw, because Thénardier in the musical is like robbing bodies in the sewer after the barricade, which is exactly what he's doing on the battlefield at Waterloo. So I'm already starting to see like where things will pop back up. These chapters were also setting up the theme of the futility of war, especially like this singular battle having so much catastrophic, I guess, death behind it. Like, one of the quotes I enjoyed from these chapters were, while Napoleon was passing through his death struggle, the 60,000 men who had fallen on the field of Waterloo were quietly rotting, and something of their peace was shed abroad over the world. If you wish to gain an idea of what revolution is, call it progress. And if you wish to acquire an idea of the nature of progress, call it tomorrow. I shouldn't be singing, but I need you to know I just want to break into song because Les Mis references tomorrow so much, especially in like, do you hear the people sing, better tomorrow is coming. I definitely do not regret doing more research about this period of French history. I think it'll become very important as we now head into, oh god, I was gonna flex that I knew what it's called, but now I forget, like the Bourbon Restoration, I think, is the era after Napoleon is exiled. But one thing I love about this is it is stoking my curiosity. I am Wikipediaing so many things. This is making me want to do so many tangent dives into like Greek mythology and other popular authors and all these references that he's making. I think this is the most academically that I've read a book since I was in college. I'm really enjoying it, and Jean Valjean is the first words I'm seeing. So we are back with our title character. I feel like I'm gonna zoom through the rest of this chapter. We have this much left. I'm on page 225, which ironically is now a quarter of the way through the book. I will join you again when I get further in and we'll see what happens. But yeah, that was the first that I had felt like, okay, that's a lot of talking that we're doing and not a lot of action. Good evening. It is Good Friday today, so I have a long weekend that I plan to just fill with reading, as you can see from my earlier clip. I've made it to page 272. I'm on chapter 3 of book 3, but I'm like halfway through Cosette's book. And I have gotten to the part where Jean Valjean went to the Thénardiers and purchased her, decided to take her as his own. I didn't realize he has an actual prison escape before that, like he was fully captured and then faked his own death, which is so of him. For the first chapter where Jean Valjean encounters Cosette, it is from a very omniscient point of view, and he's just kind of watching her and taking her under his wing, and then they leave. And now it's transitioned to a chapter where it is from his point of view, pretty much. And I just had to stop because I was crying so much, because I'm gonna cry just talking about it. It's talking about how for the first time in 25 years he's experiencing what it's like to love someone, and the protectiveness and the love that he feels for Cosette is just hitting him so hard. And it literally is mentioning the bishop again, so obviously you can tell I'm gonna cry about that. He was saying in 25 years he had been alone in the world. He had never been a father, a lover, a husband, or a friend. What do you mean? And then it says, only as he was 5 and 50 and Cosette 8 years of age, all that might have been love in the whole course of his life flowed together in a sort of ineffable light. It was the second white apparition which he had encountered. The bishop had caused the dawn of virtue to rise on his horizon. Cosette caused the dawn of love to rise. I just love this man. So I'm just like quietly weeping in bed at this entire section. I've been reading it on my phone because the beginning of this chapter was very heavy with city references. It's mapping out like the house that they went to. I had it on my Kindle so I could highlight like all the different hospitals that it mentions so I can kind of place where they are. I've been flip-flopping back and forth between the ebook and reading it physically. Like in the coffee shop I read it physically because it was a lot of the dialogue of like the Thénardiers, but when it gets into the more explainy sections, I like reading it more on my phone. I think I'm at a section, because it's about the characters that I know and love, where I could probably read this physically again. But it was actually funny because when I was at the coffee shop earlier today, I took my book out of my bag and I was gonna edit a little bit on my laptop, but then I forgot my headphones, so I ended up just reading my book. There was a man across from me and he saw my book and he struck up conversation. He was like, oh, how are you liking Les Mis? Is it your first time reading it? And I was like, yeah, I'm really liking it. I love the musical. I've had this for like 10 years. It's been my goal to read it and I'm this far through. Like, I love Jean Valjean. It's a great book. And he was telling me about the movie adaptations I need to watch, and he's read it before and he loves it. He was also wearing like a t-shirt for a metal band. So I was like, good on you breaking stereotypes, because I would not have thought that you would have read Les Mis. But yeah, had a lovely conversation about it. There was no way I could have conveyed to him just how weepy this book makes me. Right now, Cosette just represents like pure innocence, and she's been so abused and her life is turning around, and just the fact that like she's been given a doll and that is the most that she has ever had to her name, like let alone scraps of clothing and even just getting her a new outfit. I feel like I just needed to record while like my heart was heavy on my sleeve, because this book is getting so heartfelt. It already was, but every single chapter I read just keeps driving home, holy shit, I love Jean Valjean. He's one of the greatest fictional characters of all time. He's just like the purest light form. And right now, Javert believes he's dead, and there's like kind of inklings that he's still on the run from the law and he's trying to lay low. I don't know at what point this is gonna jump in time, but I know eventually, obviously, Javert is gonna find out that Jean Valjean is in fact alive. Honestly, I don't really remember in the musical what happens between Jean Valjean picking up Cosette and then it transitioning to current times, or you know, the barricade. So we have this much left of Cosette's book, and I don't know if that will be spent in her childhood or if there will be a time jump anytime soon, but I'm going to relish all the great quotations about Jean Valjean learning how to love and finding this new appreciation. People always talk about when you have a kid, it's a different kind of love than you'll ever experience, but the fact that Jean Valjean has never had like a friend or a lover at all, and now he has this like adopted daughter, it's so sweet. I love this book. Even if 600 pages of this book was absolute nonsense, I think I still would give it 5 stars just for the nuggets of goodness that you see in Jean Valjean. That is my update for tonight. And I definitely want to finish this section during this weekend because I have a lot of free time on my hands. I have about 100, oh, not even that. I have like 80 or 90 pages until the end of this section. As you can see, I've divided out the rest of the sections, and the chunkiest one is the one that I'm not really sure what this is, but it's Saint Denis or Saint Denis, but it does say the Rue Plummet, so I think this is the barricade chapter, so it's probably gonna be a lot of political shit. I'm gonna have a great night reading this. I'm gonna continue crying and blowing my nose like crazy. Well, good morning and happy Easter. I had reading sprints on Patreon yesterday, so I read a little bit more of my book. I was self-conscious that me being in bed this entire vlog was not the best, so I didn't record anything, and yet here I am in bed. But I got up to page 318 yesterday. We've entered a section that is just detailing Cosette and Valjean are on the run, and they stumble into like a convent, and the past 20 pages has just been about these nuns at this cloister or whatever. I don't even know the terminology for Catholicism. This is one of those times where I'm like, Victor, why do we care? Because what he does is he will start the lengthy explanation, and then at the end you get the significance. I wish we had just a nod of the significance while we're learning about it, so I can know, why do I need to know about the daily habits of these nuns and how strict they are. I'm assuming Cosette will go to that school. Maybe that's why it matters to set up the context of the church. God damn, Hugo. Oh my god. It's always very humbling to read like the best part of the book so back to back with a seemingly irrelevant part of the book. I was tabbing, here's like 10 tabs on one page of Valjean trying to escape from Javert with Cosette, thinking about, I have to keep her safe, she is the new focal point of my life. And just the father-daughter relationship is already setting up to be so sweet, but they are still being chased, so it's like very tense and very sad, but it's very sweet. So I have about 20 pages left until the end of this section. I am using my Easter Sunday to go and see Pride and Prejudice later on today. So in about 2 hours I have to leave, and I'm gonna go watch that movie. My mom is currently in Europe right now. She's on a river cruise with her bestie.
Are you happy to be in Paris?
So we don't really have any Easter plans other than me reading, and I'm gonna try my darndest to get past this section, and hopefully at the end of it he will throw me a bone and let me know why any of this was important. Because so far, he has not done any ramblings that didn't come back to have a purpose in the book. If I could get past the Battle of Waterloo, I can get past this one. And the more I look at this, the more I have no idea where I left off. There's so many words on this page. Also, just to add, I have taken to reading the spark notes of some of these chapters, not because I'm not understanding, but because I want to reinforce that I didn't miss anything. Sometimes it will throw in like a very specific reference to something that Valjean will react to, and I'm like, what is that? But then it doesn't even mention it in the spark notes, and then like a chapter later it will reveal what that was, and I'm like, oh. Like I said, I'm in the middle of a pretty boring chapter, so I'm gonna do a quick skim. The last 20 pages I read is summed up in just one paragraph. I'm currently in the middle of the 7th book, and the paragraph detailing what the 7th book is about is just saying that it's a criticism of monasticism. Victor Hugo is about to drop some bars about why nunneries are maybe not the best. Gee, organized religion, who would have thunk? Happy Easter. Rico, what you doing? Good evening. It's Sunday night. I did decide to dedicate the last of my night to finishing off the rest of this. Hi, Darby. Hi, Darby. What you doing? Long story short, the entire lecture about this convent ended up being like somewhat applicable. There ends up being a lot of drama about Jean Valjean and Cosette staying there, and there was some fun hijinks to get them to be able to stay there. One thing that I like is that you see a character from earlier in the book. The man who Jean Valjean had saved from the cart crushing him back when he was the mayor, he is the garden keeper at this convent, and so he like vows to help him get a job there and like keep them safe and not tell anyone who he is. And I think it was interesting because none of this part of the book I think was in the movie or the musical, so it's like you get to dive a little deeper and sees like some new content. But this was a bit harder to get through than book one. I think if you were interested in Les Mis, you could read book one all the way through in like 2 days and it hits all the good points, versus book two I felt like was 60% not plot and 40% plot, which the chapters that focus on Valjean and Cosette are so good, but then the chapters that are just explanations of random other shit, again, they're not hard to read, but I'm just like, okay, I think we can move on. I'm gonna be honest, I think I prefer the Battle of Waterloo chapters at the beginning of Cosette's book to the weird like philosophical chapter about nuns and religion. At least the Battle of Waterloo had some good context with like Napoleon and all the research that I had been doing at the beginning of this video, whereas the nuns and the cloister and him trying to make a point about religion, I just didn't follow as easily. But all that being said, I am now on page 361 and we are on book 3, Marius. Marius Pontmercy. So I might take a break from this for just a couple of days. I don't know if I'll read anything or if I'll just let my mind rest. How many pages is this next section? It's from page 360 to 512. So I will be well over halfway by the time I finish Marius's book. If I was to rate Cosette's book out of 5 stars, it would probably be 3, but I can guarantee that by the end of this book, it will achieve a 5 stars no matter what, just because I'm so obsessed with these characters. Literally, even today, I was listening to the soundtrack. I can just never get tired of Les Mis, other than when Victor Hugo goes off about some dumb shit that I don't care about. But anyway, that was this vlog. Sorry it might be less interesting than the first one, but I feel like this book overall was just less interesting than the first one. But I will definitely be back with the last 3 volumes, each in their own vlog, so hope to see you for those. And until then, take it easy. Bye guys. Mwah.